Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Joe Tippmann, Elijah Vera Tucker, John Simpson, Wario Lakin, of course. Backups, Olu Fashanu, first round pick, Carter Warren, Max Mitchell, Wes Schweitzer, and then you got like Chris Glazer and Hansen and the guys who, but the core main nine, we kind of know who they're going to be. What's the ceiling and floor of this offensive line unit?
We laugh at those last couple names you say until Xavier Newman is a key piece of their season being on the line.
Look at this video of how he spotted the ball because they were able to take a knee and beat the Giants.
Yeah, it happens real quick. So let's not write off the forgotten heroes at times. This one's a little bit more cut and dried, right? And when you go out and basically buy an offensive line, and the other two pieces are guys that were taken in the first two rounds, like you're not playing the game of like let's get into camp and compete and see what happens. It's Tyron Smith's your starting left tackle. Simpson is your starting left guard. Tippmann's your starting center. Vera Tucker's your starting right guard. And then Morgan Moses is your starting right tackle. Probably my favorite room on the roster because of the veteran blend with youth. I think what Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses are going to do, not only for Olu Fashanu, being a rookie tackle, but even a young guy like Vera Tucker, a young guy like Tippmann, you see how to take care of your body, which is so important when you're that large and playing a sport like football. You're just seeing how these guys go to work, how they prepare themselves to play. I mean, they're both 33-year-old tackles, and I understand Tyron Smith doesn't practice a lot anymore, but the level that these two play at their age is just, you got to be a little different off the field. And I think that's bringing in that DNA for a room that has been kind of a rudderless ship for too long is really, really impactful, just as much off the field and in the meeting room as it is on the field. And then obviously the depth is really interesting on this team. And that's a good thing to say after what we've had to watch the last couple of years with injuries. I mean, we feel like Olu is a guy that, I know he's a left tackle, but he's athletic enough to play right tackle. But he's really your Tyron insurance right there and the long-term franchise cornerstone on this offensive line. They really like Wes Schweitzer, and Schweitzer's a fine interior, player that can handle both center and guard roles. He just needs to stay healthy. I think it's really interesting between Max Mitchell and Carter Warren. If one of them can prove to be a viable swing tackle, and they're not the first guy off the bench, right? And with Mitchell, you feel like, and maybe this is going to be the case with Carter Warren as well, is there some guard flexibility? I think those guys kind of need to prepare for a world where they need to demonstrate that guard flexibility, because it's one thing to be, the fourth tackle on the roster, but you look at this group. I mean, Tippmann, I've talked about a lot, had multiple shoulder injuries in college. Vera Tucker's been hurt a lot in the NFL. There's a world where the guy after Schweitzer off the bench needs to play at some point this season. And can Mitchell or Carter Warren handle those duties? Olu is not a guard. Let me just get that out of the way right here. He's not built like a guard, doesn't play like a guard. Be a waste of everyone's time if you just throw him into guard and try to kind of, madden this depth chart. It doesn't work that way. So yeah, this is a group that if healthy, I mean, they have a lot of upside to be easily a top 10 unit in the NFL. If they deal with injury, how do they respond? I think Olu will be ready to answer the call. I think Schweitzer will be ready to answer that call. I want to see progress, though, from Carter Warren and Max Mitchell. I mean, let's not forget, just a couple months ago, we were kind of being sold a bill of goods that the Jets love Carter Warren, and if they have to go into the season with him starting, they're okay with that. This time last year, we were told that about Max Mitchell, and they got into camp, and, I don't mean to be so harsh on Max Mitchell, who I know has had significant health issues in the NFL, and he's a fourth-round pick. Like, it's not even fair expectations. But it felt like they got to camp last year. We're playing him at tackle with the ones, and everybody looked around each other like, oh, God, how could we see this coming? And you just have to ask yourself, how could you see this coming? Like, what did you – it's just not a fair jump to ask somebody like that to make. So it's good to know that they've learned from their mistakes, and not only do they have two pro tackles – starting for this team, but they have the 11th overall pick, who is just a phenomenal talent, waiting in the wings as well. And I think this could be a rugged unit. I think it'll be a tough unit, and it's a really, really talented unit. If I had to pick a weak, link on the top five, Simpson's a guy that can get caught with penalties. He's a guy that can, get beaten pass pro, but he's a rugged run blocker. If he's your weakest link, as we said before, that's fine. You'll be okay. So I'm really excited to watch this unit work, especially in an offense that should get the ball out of the quarterback's hands on time. And the fun part of their job is if they open any space for Breece Hall, it's going to be daylight quite often.
All right, take us home, Paul. Where does this offense rank league-wide in the NFL? They've effectively been the worst offense in football. I don't know, 5 of the last 6 years, like literally like 30th or worst. I don't have it in front of me, but it's been right about there.
You don't need the numbers. We don't need the numbers.
It feels like 25 of the last 30 years. It feels longer.
I mean, that's actually true. Like it's been one. I think 2004 and 2015 were effectively the only 2 years like this millennium they were like in the top half of the league. Ugh. Where do they rank league wide to take us home on offense?
Yeah, but before I answer your question, I'm going to fire off 3 quick ones on the last 3 position groups. So offensive line, if anybody's watching Hard Knocks right now, it appears that the Jets were pretty hard in on Illuminor and Runyon, right? So a world exists where if that works out, it's Olu, Runyon, and Illuminor are the 3 additions, right? Yeah. Tyron Smith probably doesn't happen because the money's probably not there, and you don't end up going after Simpson and Moses. And so I think it's an interesting debate and conversation to say, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the current configuration with the depth we have, with the years that we have them at, or would you have rather spent big money on Runyon and Illuminor? And I think that you can make the case that Plan B worked out better than Plan A potentially could have worked out. So I think it's an interesting conversation to have on the tight end thing. The only thing I want to add to what Dan said, and Dan said it already, but like Ruckert's blocking ability makes the receiving ability better. Like they slipped him out on a wheel route a couple times last year, and he made an impressive catch. Like the dude can catch the ball, and I think you can lull defenses to sleep a little bit with how good of a blocker he is by just, hey, he's going to be blocking all the time, and then you slip him out on the side, and look what you can open up. And then on the running back thing, when Connor said when Breece Hall came off the field on 3rd down, I had like a split second of I was like, who came on the field, right? Yeah. And it's been less than a year, right? And I'm already like trauma holing Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook's going to be a guy in like 10, 15 years, you're going to be at a barbecue and somebody's going to be like, remember when Dalvin Cook was on the Jets? And you're going to be like, no, I don't remember that. When was that, right? So
literally 0 memorable moments, 0 touchdowns.
Just horrible. Yeah. Absolutely horrible. So yeah, quick on those. I think the thing that I keep coming back to on the offense is like, obviously the talent level is at a place that we haven't seen in a long time. Certainly they have always had, I feel like the Jets always have 1 or 2 star players, and then they don't have the cast filled out to the point where they can utilize the star power of those players, right? So like they always have these guys who end up leaving and going somewhere else and then blossoming to their full potential, because we don't have the pieces or the coaching around them to help them reach that level. And so it's not that talent has ever been such a deep problem. There's always been guys around, but we've always been missing that kind of connective tissue to make it all happen together. And like the easy answer there is quarterback. Answer B is coaching. And what I keep coming back to is like, I can't get away from the thought that like Aaron Rodgers, obviously it all comes down to him, but also the mental headspace that he is in now, where I think last year we were all thinking, oh, he's been spurned by the Packers. He's going and doing his own thing. He's going to be angry. He's going to be playing with a vengeance, all that kind of stuff. And now that has only increased tenfold because of everything that's happened over the course of last year with the injury and everything that's been said about him and all the controversy that he brings on himself, honestly, but it's all there. And, you know, the guys that have that psychopathic almost level of competitiveness that he seems to have, like that is a factor in the way they play sometimes. And that's what I keep coming back to is like, that is the X factor here. And so as long as he stays healthy and he maintains that attitude, I don't see how they're not top 10. Like it's with the talent around him and the quarterback running it, I think it's enough to get over the coaching. And I think I can't see them being outside of top 10 as like a midpoint scenario. The high end of that, I think we're talking like maybe top 6 kind of offense in the NFL. And I think, you know, to your point earlier that you made, like, it almost still doesn't feel real because we haven't seen it in a regular season game. We saw like 1 touchdown thrown in a Giants preseason game where everybody was nervous that he was going to get hurt anyway. And then it ended so quickly in the regular season that it still doesn't feel real. So once we get to that point where we can see an offense that's functioning, and when we get the ball with a minute and 40 seconds left, down 4, you're just like, yeah, we're going to score, right? I have never experienced that feeling. I don't know what it feels like, right? So it's going to be interesting to, if we can get into that groove and get to a point where we're confident in our offense. I just want to experience what that's like being a fan, but I don't see any way they're outside the top 10.
Yeah, I'm settling in my final prediction that they finish somewhere in the 7-12 range, pending they're all healthy. That feels about right to me. And their defense will be good enough where if they do that, that's a playoff team and a team that could credibly win the AFC East. That wraps the offensive portion of the podcast. Friendly reminder, week 1 highs and lows are live already. Brees Hall, 66.5 yards. Promo code Badlands, 50% deposit match. Immediately smash over 66.5 yards for week 1 before they adjust that. We'll be reminding everyone about that all August and September. We're now going to move over to talking about the defense. Dan, I'm going to let you run wild here as we start with the defensive front. So the group, Quinn Williams, probably a top 2 interior defensive lineman in football. Javon Kinlaw, the new starter next to him, the reclamation project, former first-round pick, coming over to White Cotton, Sala, and Olbrich to maximize his potential. Michael Clemens is back, a guy that we're not quite as sold on, but I'll let you talk through where he fits in this a little more. Sal Thomas, of course, is back, getting the escrow contract every year, as we joke about. Leonard Taylor, Watts, popular UDFA players that everyone's excited to see. That can they get in the mix? Can they make the team? Leaky Fotu, a new random interior defensive lineman the Jets signed for basically the veteran minimum. No more Quentin Jefferson, no more John Franklin Myers, no more Al Woods. And then if you look at the edge group, Hassan Reddick, we think he's going to get his contract signed soon enough where it's not going to be an issue. Jermaine Johnson, coming off a breakout season. Will McDonald, first-round pick heading into year 2. Little buzz about McGregor, a UDFA. Could he potentially make some noise? That's the whole group that we're working with here. What are you watching for? Who do you think makes the team, and how good do you think this collection of players can be?
So I think that I will agree with our friends over at PFF in that they could be the best interior defensive line, or the best defensive line group in the entire NFL. I think that the interior is what most people were concerned about. And I think that they've taken an interesting strategy this offseason, because I think last offseason we're like, you need the one technique, you need the one technique, you need the size, and then to get Al Woods. And then they go through the season and Al Woods played pretty well, but really it was Quentin Jefferson that everyone's like, oh, whoa, okay, this actually was the more important signing. I think they took the lessons from that and they said, oh, okay, cool. We're actually just going to get nimble along the defensive line. Javon Kinlaw is a really intriguing player because of the size and athleticism combination. So he kind of has the size that you'd be like, oh, this is maybe more of a one technique, but like his athleticism is way more than you would expect from that. So I think that they've gotten considerably more nimble and they've kind of stayed with that. I think the Lecky Fotu signing, I don't know that he will make the final roster, to be honest with you. I think they're going to like what they get from a lot of the newer guys like Watts and, they got Solomon Thomas back. They got, of course, Leonard Taylor's UDFA. I think if those guys show more promise, I think it could be an issue for guys like Clemens and Fotu if they don't perform in